Do you know what I'm saying though?
No. Time to go over the latest Danny Brown record. Know what I'm saying? It's 11 songs at 33 minutes. Danny Brown's a Detroit MC, and if you ask me, I think he represents Detroit better than Big Sean. Actually, I got into a real life argument with somebody over who was a better Detroit rapper, and he kept trying to tell me it was Big Sean. I was like, no.
Big Sean could even list all the members of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah, what a fool. And Danny Brown is making some really great music. Of course, back in 2011, his debut record.
Not debut.
Or his
second. After the hybrid.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the hybrid.
Everyone forgets the hybrid.
Telling you, yeah, I mean, nobody cares about that one. But this might as well have been his like biggest step into fame. This might as well have been the debut. Triple X, which detail a lot of drug usage, and of course the album art is iconic because it's got on the front.
So I saw someone on Twitter. I think it's like hip hop by the numbers or something like that.
Yeah.
Danny Brown factually supports, or no, Danny Brown supported by the facts. Danny Brown actually references more drugs in Future.
Yeah, I saw that. Like different kinds of drugs.
Yeah, because Danny Brown doesn't like Future just mentions it.
He's
like
a one-trick pony.
Yeah, no, he mentions like the brand names. Danny Brown mentions everything. He mentions the generics too. For those poor people who need to do drugs.
He mentions the Kroger generics. This is, of course, Triple X followed up by his next record in 2013, Old.
A little bit more pop friendly.
Yeah.
Has some mainstream features, Charlie XCX, Schoolboy Q, A$AP Rocky.
Of course.
Had like a dubstep track to it too. It was
had an old George Washington picture on the front.
One thing I could say about both XXX and Old, or 30 and Old, is that they're both really long, or they feel really long. They're both about like around 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But they feel like forever. And they kind of repeat themselves, whereas following Old, Atrocity Exhibition, his collaboration with Paul White, is a very iconic experimental hip-hop album because it just pushed the boundaries, and I think it's the most saturated form of Danny we've seen yet. It's very bright, very unflattering, and just strobe-like.
I remember back in 2016 we kept describing it as the downward spiral of somebody. Of course, like it starts out a little more bright and then just kind of spirals down as we go on through the record.
Yeah, it starts off with, I'm smoking in a rack.
Yes.
Been in this barn for 3 days.
Since then, Danny's really cleaned up his act. He got rid of his tooth gap.
Yeah.
And some dental work done. He looks
which
very handsome
me.
now. Very handsome man.
The tooth gap was an important aesthetic to his music.
I thought so, but I still like him since he got it.
It's the whistle noise. It's the slide whistle every time he talks.
He also got a Viceland TV show, Danny's House, which is, I think, really funny. And I think had a big mark on the type of music that he's making now.
Yeah, the weird thing is I can't watch like a whole entire episode because it's just like, it's not cringy, it's just really weird.
It is really weird.
I think the whole entire premise is supposed to be like, was it Mr. Rogers?
It's very similar to like an Eric Andre kind of thing,
Yeah.
or like a Between Two Ferns kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's like Danny Brown in his house, and he always has like house guests, and they talk about stuff. He had like Quelly Chris on there. He had the Insane Clown Posse on there. I'm just like really, really eccentric guests, but I feel like they really complement his personality
Like
well.
Zach Fox.
Yeah. Yes. And so I think that had a bigger impact on the record that he made. Now, the Q-Tip executive produced, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He started releasing singles earlier this year with Dirty Laundry, which felt like almost a Saturday morning, like cartoon kind of production on here, where he's telling a story about just all sorts of stuff, and how he met this woman.
It's Doom-esque in the sense how Doom attached villainy to, or like a filthy lifestyle to like food. Danny Brown is attaching a filthy lifestyle to just doing laundry, talking about how he had sex with a stripper and only paid her in change. And the next day she actually did the laundry with that change. How he didn't need fabric softener because he was hard. Just a bunch of weird comparisons to doing laundry.
Funny. It's very chaotic. The stories are really like just weird and don't don't like line up, but it's funny to delve into this lifestyle. Like Doom, I imagine, does not live a very like glamorous life. I imagine he has like a very just gross, like filthy apartment that he lives in, like very dimly lit, and that's just how he lives. But, like Danny Brown, I know lives more of a like out there lifestyle, but I still think that some of the things he does, like some of the stories he tells, are just really like gross.
There's a great line in there. It's crack tastes like soap for a fiend or something like that. Also, did the Humpty Dump in the Burger King bathroom. Also, weirdly referencing like other tracks he's did, like mentioning the old moniker of the hybrid.
Yeah.
Talking about Daddy was a Rolling Stone, so I sold rocks to him. So referencing Rolling Stone off Atrocity Exhibition. Just like a few other references I can't recall off the top of my head that like are weird themes that apply to like pretty much all of Danny Brown's work, which is really interesting that he just has these like solid themes. Because moving on to like Best Life,
his next single,
which is very similar to, I can't remember the name of the track for the life of me, but there's a track off Atrocity Exhibition that pretty much has a similar theme of living life kind of in the moment for now, because there isn't anything after it.
This actually reminded me a lot of the Avalanche's production for Danny Brown's track on Wildflower, Frankie Sinatra.
Yeah.
It reminds me of some really upbeat, I don't want to say like Saturday morning cartoon again, because I think it's a little different, but it's also like very soulful and colorful and sweet tooth. And Danny over this is talking about like living his best life. And I talked about earlier, I think Danny Brown has like really cleaned up his act and kind of just cleaned up his lifestyle a little bit. And yeah, I think like he's still really out there and weird, but like it seems like he's in such a better place than where he was on Atrocity Exhibition in 2016, and I give him all the credit in the world for that, because I think Best Life really personifies him. He talks about like his childhood a little bit. He talks about like where he's been leading up to this moment, and the production, this like silky production that he's over on here, I think just complements him really well.
Yeah. The Q-Trip tracks on here are my favorite moments, the produced moments by Q-Trip.
Yeah.
Paul White's back on this. He produces a couple of tracks. I don't think as notable as their collaborations on Atrocity Exhibition,
Yeah.
but it's nice to see that pairing again, because it works. It's very effective.
Yeah.
But going over, I guess we're talking about all the Q-Trip tracks. Going over Combat, the end has this weird, like, lounge jazz type vibe.
It's very Tribe.
Yeah. Very, like, almost that great saxophone that's on there. Just very interesting. It gives us, like, weird, like, you mentioned how, like, it reminds me of the Avalanches. One thing that, like, that Frankie Sinatra reminded me of is like when there's mashups of like Thomas the Tank Engine and they'll put like a Childish Gambino verse over it. It reminds me of that weirdly, because it just doesn't add up, but it works.
Yeah.
It's very like two different like layers of things that should never combine. Something more like loose and something more like threatening over the top of it is very interesting. Also, the fact that Q-Tip and Consequence actually show up on the track, not having like a full verse or anything, but I like the idea.
I like their ad-lib and chorus.
Yeah, their literal just pop in feels important. It feels big, even though it's not mentioned, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because it's not a feature. I think one thing I can discredit this album on, besides Run the Jewels on 3 Tearz, not a lot of these features are around for longer than a cup of coffee. They don't feel like Blood Orange is really not around for a lot. Like, I feel like some of these features could have been fleshed out or just not listed, or just been around as additional vocals.
Yeah.
Well, I like Blood Orange's performance. Also, it's his most British performance. I completely forget he's from the UK.
Yeah.
Because he's usually just like this very like distant voice. He doesn't like speak, and when he does it, it's like that like stretched out moniker.
Yeah.
Now that he's actually like speaking like regular words, it's like regular diction. It's
very British.
Fresh-ish, yeah. Also going over Spiritual with JPEG Mafia. JPEG Mafia just really likes Pharrell all of a sudden.
Yeah. He sounds very similar to Pharrell, which I think it might be intentional.
Yeah.
that seems like a very JPEG move, like making fun of Pharrell like that. I think it's, I actually think that adds to the track. It's a lot of fun. It's like, as much as I would have liked to have seen like a really weird out there abstract kind of JPEG feature like he does in his solo work, I think that by him like messing around and sounding how he does is, it's still a lot of fun.
The thing about this is, like, every time we get something from JPEG, I don't know what to expect anymore.
Yeah.
He's constantly keeping us on his toes. That's the one feature, like, why I think it probably just doesn't, it's not around long for enough, so maybe it shouldn't be a feature because it's just a hook. But, like,
yeah, it's a good little chorus.
It's really interesting because I guess I wouldn't feel as important if that wasn't listed as a feature, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But he also did something with, I think, Vegan recently. Nauseous/devilish. It's just very like loose and out of the place, and so he's stepping up his features. They're always like very interesting and weird with like random people, which is really interesting. Also on Spiritual, Thundercat and Flying Lotus produced. Thundercat's bass is just like
very off-putting.
It's nonsensical. It always is pretty much nonsensical, but this time, like, having Danny Brown over it, none of it makes any sense, and I absolutely love it for that, because it just, like, it's so, like, out of there. It just seems completely out of this world.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up. These two forces don't combine with each other. Like, they're just two separate forces stacked on top of each other.
Right.
They don't add into one thing. They're just layered on top of each other, which is great. Three Tearz, which is produced by JPEG, which reminds me a lot of it sounds kind of like an LP beat. The drums sound like an LP beat.
Yeah.
It something that we produced for Killer Mike off of what is it? What was the one Killer Mike album before Run the Jewels? I can't remember.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember for the life of me at the current moment. Oh, well, I'll come back to it. But that track really, I think it works out. I think it's very loose. It's a slower paced track. I think it's not as good as the collaboration they had on Run the Jewels 3, where I think it fit more into Danny because it was way more manic.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes around with the rest of this album. This album is not as flashy as Atrocity Exhibition. It isn't as that, like, strobe-esque quality. I don't feel like it's very, not threatening, but, like, it's not like just
No, I think non-threatening is a really good word for this, actually. Because Atrocity Exhibition felt extremely, like, serious and high stakes, and, yeah, like, really threatening and off-putting. But this one feels, like, very Danny Brown walking his dog.
Yeah.
Like, just taking a walk down the street, like, being his own self. Like, I no longer think of Danny with, like, the big tooth gap and, like, his hair all off to the side, like, all crazy. Like, now I think of him as, like, a very, like, well put together guy, and I think of him in, like, that big robe that he's walking around in the Dirty Laundry music video. Like, I think he's just so much happier now, and the music reflects that very well.
Going over some other moments, Belly the Beast and You Know What I'm Saying, both featuring Abung JR. Is that close enough?
I guess.
He appeared on the Everything Is Recorded album last year. I really liked the performance on She Said with Kamasi. That was really good. But both of these tracks are just complete. Belly the Beast just sounds like a heartbeat as the production.
Belly the Beast is like
that's the closest to Atrocity.
It's very organic, and yeah, I think this is the closest to Atrocity Exhibition that we're gonna get, because it's like the drum in the background is obviously like a heartbeat, and then we get those like piercing like synth moments, like really dragged out. Reminds me of like a horror movie, like when the monster's about to appear, or almost like in a cave, like. I'm trying to think. Like in a cave, I feel like you see something like very shiny, and that beams of light just kind of go off in all directions. Almost if you're like a crystal like cavern or something. That's what this reminds me of. Like obviously like inside the belly of the beast. And Danny's rapping about some of his like most weird like just weird one-liners that he could come up with. And they don't make any sense, but I think it's like some of his funniest lines on here. And then Obang Jair comes in with, so like, I feel like this is a dream. Like his vocals on here are very off-putting as well.
Yeah.
They reminded me of DJ Khaled, like what was his name? Buju Bantu?
Yeah, something like that.
Or whatever his name was. Very, like, earthy tones. Very, I think, like, very down-to-earth. Like, this whole thing is, like, a dream, blah, blah, blah. This is very, like, Atrocity Exhibition on here. But Danny Brown is, like, still going as this very, like, manic force. It's almost like a weird version of the Jonah and the Whale story.
Yeah.
Except for it's Danny Brown and some creature's belly.
Yeah.
It's very hard to explain because it feels very low quality. It feels very like lo-fi and weird, and like if I heard it once, I'm never gonna want to hear it again. But for some reason, it just keeps drawing me back.
Yeah. Also, you know what I'm saying is Danny Brown just literally just ends every line with "you know what I'm saying," just repeating it over and over again, which I think is really interesting because I think it adds repetition to the style of life that he's in. It's really interesting. Just like it's hard to explain stuff. Like he's talking about big themes, and how do you explain big themes by just clarifying if the other person knows what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that the way that he writes it on here, I feel like this is something that everybody says. Everybody in the world says like, "Oh, you know what I'm saying?" kind of thing, and to explain these big themes, that's almost like what you have to do.
Yeah.
Even if you're not making any sense talking, you keep having to say, "You know what I'm saying," so the other person, you can acknowledge that they're hearing you.
One thing I think this album kind of fails on a little bit, change up in theme song, like little, they're low, they're not lower effort, they're just like lower pace. I think maybe starting this thing off with like Dirty Laundry or like Best Life probably would have been a better option than having these tracks towards the end before Combat would have been a little bit better. Because it just starts out a little bit too slow. And I don't think it really works well. And it's not anything we haven't heard from Danny before. Like we've heard this combination with him and Paul White before. Like, it doesn't completely rock the world. His verses are consistently good across this entire thing. He shows himself to be a tour de force still. Still consistently good on the mic, still high energy. While he's not manic on this, he's still interesting and funny and charismatic. He shows himself to be a more positive guy by still talking about dark side of humanity on this, which is really interesting. It reminds me of when we talked about Cara Bonita last year, how they talk about dark stuff, but it's like they have this weird anime front, so it like seems super positive and cheery, but like underneath there's like evil bubbling on the surface. And the same for Danny Brown, where this seems like majority of it seems like cheerier and happier, but then you get moments like Belly of the Beast where it's just completely grimy and dark, and
it's really weird, but he's still like making jokes about it too.
Yeah.
He's still messing around and talking about just dumb stuff. And even like Dirty Laundry, he says it in a very like cheery way. We've got a very like bright production in the background. He's talking about having sex with a stripper and only paying her like nickels and dimes and stuff.
Yeah. Keep in mind those scores a few times. I mean, right now I'm feeling a 8+ on this. I like it. Atrocity Exhibition was better. I think it had bigger stakes, higher stakes. I think this needs some stakes, but it's still pretty consistent in what it is and exciting.
I'd have to agree. I really like this album, and I don't want to compare it to Atrocity Exhibition because I think that stood alone as its own thing. And I feel like Danny as a person is so much happier now, and that to me I think is more important than the music that he's making. Yeah. So like I said, I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It's very it's bite sized as well, so it doesn't take up a lot of your
comparing
time.
this to XXX and old or 30 and old, it feels small. Like this feels like a short project, and it really isn't. Which one thing is good because it didn't feel like it was drawn out. It got to the beat. Yeah. Even though it does have a little bit of a slow start, like the start's like the slowest thing or like the most dragged out thing about this.
Yeah, it's so much easier digestible as well. And Danny's personality, I think, is not toned down, but it's definitely different. Like my girlfriend doesn't like Danny Brown because any tracks off of Atrocity Exhibition that I would play, she would be like, "Oh, this is about to give me a panic attack." Like he's so edgy, he's so like it makes me feel like really anxious. But I played a song from this, and she was like, "Who is this?" It's like Danny Brown. She was like, "No way, that's not him."
I think we're gonna leave it at that. So in the end, you did know what I was saying.
I did know what you were saying.